chat. Tell me where you're watching from. It's Saturday, guys. We are on the last live stream of the week. Still, as promised, I'll bring you guys 2 live streams of the day, but got started late today, so here we are with the first one. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Kieran Smith, call me Q, and we are on the corner. What up, y'all? We on the corner. So it's Saturday. We got a couple clips up. First live stream of the day. Let's jump right in so we can get to the second in a couple hours. We have Pod Force 1 with Miranda Devine. Inside the Trump-Elon fallout and the $1.5 trillion bill that changed everything. So we have Miranda Devine, and she has this interview with White House Speaker Mike Johnson. So we're going to take a look at that. About a 20-minute clip. We'll probably go about 15 minutes into that, depending on how good it is, because I haven't watched that whole clip. Then we'll switch gears and we'll jump over to Larry with Larry O'Connor. Shout out to Larry. I watch Larry on the side a lot. Haven't brought him on the channel to you guys that often. So today is going to be the first time on the channel we'll be reacting to Larry. He covered what Byron Donalds is planning could erase the entire Biden presidency. So we're going to take a look at what Larry has to say about Byron Donalds. Then we're going to jump over to Matt Walsh, switch gears and go to Matt Walsh. Shout out to Matt Walsh. Joe Biden was one of the worst presidents in American history, part 2. So we actually covered, I believe, part 1 last night. I covered part 1 with Matt Walsh. If it wasn't last night, it had to be Thursday. So you guys go back and take a look at that. We'll switch gears and go over to CNN. Not my favorite mainstream media network by far, but they covered Georgia Confederacy Group sues State Park over new exhibit. So we have the Confederacy Group wanting to sue the State Park over a new exhibit that's going to be put up around America's, let's just say, largest Confederacy memorial. You guys know that's in Georgia. And then we'll end the live stream with a Daily Dose of Wisdom. Shout out to him. We have reacted to him on the channel before. He covered Jordan Peterson question about Jesus. Then this happens. Usually I end my live streams with a Christian clip. Normally it's with Clip Buell. Shout out to Clip Buell, YouTube content creator who does a great job with his YouTube shorts. But today we'll end the live stream with a Christian clip from, we got George Danko, and he has Jordan Peterson on his channel. So this happened recently. He's had Peterson on the channel before, but this was more of a recent interaction they had, so I wanted to use this as our last clip of the live stream. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the first clip of the live stream. You guys hit that like button for me. Say what's up. Arabella, what's up? Shout out to you. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that like button for me, guys. Say what's up in the chat for a shout out. Hit that like button. We're going to go to the first clip. So we got Miranda Devine, and she is with White House Speaker Mike Johnson. So they're going to be talking about the Trump-Elon fallout and the $1.5 trillion bill that changed everything. Let's take a listen.
Congratulations on getting the one big, beautiful bill over the line.
Yep.
How did you do it?
A lot of prayer and patience. Really, we're getting a lot of credit for pulling off a miracle. It wasn't. I think it was Vince Lombardi that said, victory loves preparation. And so we prepared for this, Back in the spring of 2024, we had the vision for what we believed would happen. I was convinced President Trump was coming back to the White House, and I thought we'd have the majority in the House and Senate. But we knew the majorities would be small because we're in an era of gerrymandering and redistricting, and we have a 3-vote margin in both chambers now. So we looked ahead of that, anticipating we would have this historic moment, and that we would have to fix every metric of public policy because Biden and Harris just destroyed everything in 4 years. So to do that, we knew we would need to do a partisan exercise. We would have to use the budget reconciliation process, which is, as you know, the only way around the 60-vote threshold in the Senate, which is always otherwise necessary. So to do that,
Which you're never going to make.
never going to make. I mean, Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, not going to help it, right? And we knew that. So I told all my colleagues, we had a retreat where we planned all this, and I said, guys, this is what's going to happen. We're going to have unified government. We've got to make the most of it. Let's do reconciliation bigger than it's ever been done in history. Instead of just using 2 committees of jurisdiction like in the past, why don't we use 11 committees?
Wow.
But to do that, it's going to be very complicated, very complex. It's going to be a very large piece of legislation. But if we plan accordingly, we can achieve that goal together. And that's what we did. So we started planning over a year ago. About 15 or 16 months of work went into delivering that final vote in time for July 4th.
And when you say work, I mean, it's patience. It is actual like wrangling human beings. So
Right.
how do you do that? What does a speaker actually do?
Well, the speaker in the modern era is different, I think, than it was probably in previous generations. There's always been a whip operation, but the way Congress has evolved now in the age of social media, when everyone can go online every 2 minutes and say what they're disgruntled about, I'm really as much a mental health counselor as I am a legislator, a policy director, because you got to do all these things simultaneously, and you have to deal with everyone
14,
with
shout
their
out to
individual
you.
preferences and peccadillos, and it's not always easy, But we had a one vote margin for
Yeah.
most of the first 100 days, the smallest in history. It would seemingly be an impossible set of circumstances, but look, I genuinely love everybody I serve with. I know what makes them tick. I know the dynamics of their districts. I know where their pressure points are, and I try to work every day to make everybody successful. To have them be of their highest and best use to the country and to their constituents, and that's the trick, and that's what we try to do every single day.
So who's your most troublesome member, or the one you've had to spend the most amount of time with?
I'm not going to name names. I mean, they self-identify because they go out on social media and cause problems sometimes. But look, I love and respect them all. Some of them require more attention than others. But everybody's principled here. They're all
That was
trying
a
to
good
achieve the best
answer.
objective for their constituents and for the country, and I respect that.
He said, I love and respect them all. Some of them require different attention than others. I like that answer. I can respect White House Speaker Mike Johnson for that. But I'd always say he does well in his interviews and when he's on the when he's in the public square. I think he articulates himself extremely well. I think he handles himself well under pressure, and I think he does great with the press. So shout out to Mike Johnson.
Spend the most amount of time with?
I'm not going to name names. I mean, they self-identify because they go out on social media and cause problems sometimes. But look, I love and respect them all. Some of them require more attention than others. But everybody's principled here. They're all trying to achieve the best objective for their constituents and for the country, and I respect that. I'm famously remind them all, I'm never going to ask anybody to compromise a core principle. I do expect them to give up on some of their preferences because that's the way a legislative body works. It's a deliberative public body, and you have 219 colleagues here on our side of the aisle. So I expect them to do that at the end, but I do a lot less arm twisting than I do just convincing.
You also had Elon Musk, who kind of came in out of the shadows at the end and tried to kill the bill. And I know you'd spend a lot of time educating him, bringing him along in the process. What went wrong?
He's a human being. He's a human being, and he makes a lot of money.
Look, Elon is a genius, okay? He does things that I can't even fathom. But one of his fields of expertise was not necessarily crafting legislation, right? So got to know him really well over the last year.
And that's fair for Mike Johnson to say, right? Because that's not what Elon was put there for. President Trump didn't put him there to craft legislation. So I think that's pretty fair for House Speaker Mike Johnson to actually say. It's my dog's hair. Yeah, probably. But I think it's fair for him to say that, right? Because Elon wasn't put there to craft legislation. So when Mike Johnson says that's one of the things he wasn't the greatest at, it makes sense. That's why when she asked, what exactly happened? Like, you spend so much time trying to bring him along and explain the bill to him. I'm like, yeah, because he's human and he makes a lot of money. He wasn't there to make up legislation. He was there to save costs, right? So when he sees the bill, he starts to flip out, rightfully so, because he knows the people, he knew who was going to be greatly affected by it. And most of all, it was America, and he was put there to save, right? So it made sense for him to flip out. But Mike Johnson makes a great point here when he's like, Elon wasn't put there to craft legislation. So of course he wouldn't completely understand everything that's going on with the bill and why it would have to be passed and Doge would have to be put in place. I can understand why that wouldn't make sense to Elon or why it would drive him crazy.
As he came on board with the Trump agenda and helping the campaign and all that. In fact, he requested a meeting with me months before the election. Came out and sat down in my office and said, I'm going to get involved in a big way. And we just kind of brainstormed together.
What did he want from you?
Well, he was launching the PAC, and he was going to invest a lot of money. And he wanted, I guess, my inside counsel on best practices and tips and maybe some recommendations on persons who he could get involved, because it just wasn't his field area. So I got to know and respect Elon. We became friends in the whole process. And when the Doge effort was launched and started, we met early on in the process. I talked to him about the codification process, that we didn't want this to be a flash in the pan. We wanted to codify it, make it a permanent part of the way we do business here. And there's a certain series of steps that we had to go through, a sequential series of steps to do that. He understands the science part of that, right? But at the end, I mean, he just became disgruntled with the package and the way it was done. Elon, I try to convince him, we're taking several steps. I call it the 5 steps to fiscal sanity, fiscal responsibility.
Because you're a hawk yourself.
Yes, and we spend too much money, and the debt is our #1 national security threat.
Royal Garden, shout out to you.
Yes, more than that now.
Right.
The trajectory is not sustainable.
Royal Garden's
we
the
can't
GOAT.
solve the problem overnight because it took decades for us to get here, right? The big beautiful bill was a giant leap forward. We're going to save over $1.5 trillion in spending. It's the largest that any legislative body.
I just want to go back to something Mike Johnson said because I think he made a good point when he was trying to explain something to Elon.
Effort was launched and started. We met early on in the process. I talked to him about the codification process, that we didn't want this to be a flash in the pan. We wanted to codify it, make it a permanent part of the way we do business here. And there's a certain series of steps that we had to go through, a sequential series of steps to do that. He understands the science part of that, right? But at the end, I mean, he just became disgruntled with the package and the way it was done. Elon, I try to convince him, we're taking several steps. I call it the 5 steps to fiscal sanity, fiscal responsibility.
But you see it, Mike Johnson says it. He says in the end, he just became disgruntled with the package and how it was put together. And it's not much anyone is going to be able to do about that, right? Because the package has to be put together, right? The legislation has to be passed, and Elon's not going to be made privy to everything. That's why Mike Johnson says he understood the science part of it, right? That makes sense because Elon is a rocket scientist. But as far as the legislative part of it, he did not understand why the bill had to be put together the way it was, especially with Doge being put in place for him to cut costs. So he just became disgruntled with it. This is why I said he's a human being. That's why Elon got the way that he did, simply because he's a human being.
Disgruntled with the package and the way it was done. Elon, I try to convince him, we're taking several steps. I call it the 5 steps to fiscal sanity, fiscal responsibility.
Because you're a hawk yourself.
Yes, and we spend too much money, and the debt is our #1 national security threat. And
100%
Congress to solve it. Yes, and more than that now.
Right.
The trajectory is not sustainable, but we can't solve the problem overnight because it took decades for us to get here, right? The big beautiful bill was a giant leap forward. We're going to save over $1.5 trillion in spending. It's the largest that any legislative body in the history of mankind has ever done. Is it enough? No, it's a drop in the bucket. But it is a turn. I use the metaphor of an aircraft carrier. The U.S. economy is that. You don't turn an aircraft carrier on a dime. It takes a mile of open ocean when it's top speed. And this was the first big crank on the wheel, the turn on the wheel that we've had in generations. And now we have the next sequential steps to continue that.
And the next step is something called a precision bill, isn't it? Which explain just briefly what that is and what you will be cutting. I think it's like $94 billion.
Yes, it's a rescission is, in layman's terms, it's when Congress claws back spending that is being wasted, fraud, waste, and abuse.
Under the Biden administration.
That's right. And the president and his administration came in, they identified these areas like USAID, for example, which was just fraught with abuse and wasteful uses of taxpayer dollars. We were funding transgender operas in Peru, and Congress didn't know that, right? Which is one of the credits to the Doge effort is they were able to crack the code, get inside the belly of the beast of the agencies, crawl through the data with magic algorithms and find these things that we didn't know. So we found that out. We were alarmed as everyone was, and we immediately sought to bring it back. But in order to do that, you have to get a request from the administration, the White House, the executive branch, to the legislative branch saying, please take this back. We did that, and we passed it in the House. It's pending action in the Senate right now. And that, we hope, is the first of a series of rescission packages that come forward where we, again, in our sequential steps to getting back fiscal sanity, that's going to be a piece of it.
And so USAID, all that wasteful money, plus NPR, PBS.
Yes.
That kind of, why is that?
Well, we've long known conservatives have been frustrated about
NPR's left me.
PBS, for example, for many, many years because it's a lopsided, biased journalism. They're not objective in any form or fashion. It's propaganda. Let's call it what it is, and taxpayers should not be funding that. So we feel strongly about that. The rescissions package reflects that, and I hope the Senate sees it the same way.
And Elon Musk couldn't be convinced that this was the right way to go about it? Or was it something personal? I felt like it wasn't really about the bill. He was disgruntled with, I don't know, not being in favor with Donald Trump or something. I don't know what.
This is a brand new
No, I don't think
2025 air conditioning system that we just finished installing here at a customer.
probably a multitude of factors. I'll let everybody else judge the motivations behind it. But clearly he got unhappy in a very short period of time. I mean, he generally knew what we were doing, and we talked about it. I mean, he knew for months, I mean, many months we worked on this. And I was keeping him apprised of it. I was sending long text messages explaining each piece. We talked about it in person. I don't think he was, the final product maybe didn't meet all of his expectations in terms of what we're doing, for example, with electric vehicles.
See you later, Grow Garden.
And all that.
Shout out to you. Have a wonderful day.
But look,
thanks for stopping by.
Judge that. I've got to keep my eyes on the prize and keep moving forward. And I'm trying to be a peacemaker in all of it. I've reached out to Elon multiple times.
Since the blow up.
Yes. And I wanted he and the president to mend it up. And frankly, I think the president was of that mind as well. But, you know, there's some tension there.
Yeah. So, and he's responded, Elon, to you?
Well, through a third party, actually. So it's not really all his fault. I sent him a long text message, and then his number changed because after the blow up, something happened with his
Thanks, Justin. Shout out to you.
Later,
nice story.
Down in the ether somewhere. He never read it. So I look forward to meeting with him in person. We got to make that right. I got nothing against Elon, obviously. I have great respect for what he's done. And I just want.
And one thing I think President Trump's cabinet has been great with is like they have been really great with just not throwing each other under the bus. Right? Like, even look at Mike Johnson here. You know, he's like, I have great respect for Elon. I hope to talk to him again soon. You know, no hard feelings. You know what I mean? He respects the fact that Elon is an individual person and that he was not brought on to create legislation and that they did not see eye to eye on a bill. Mike Johnson's like, hey, no harm, no foul. I have nothing against him. The man's a genius. I hope to meet with him soon. You see, it's like, why can't we see the Democrats act like this? Why can't we see our Democratic Party be this adult? I don't know why we haven't seen it post-election, but they've been pretty far left. They've been pretty out there. Justin, shout out to you, bro. Subscribe, hit the like button.
We fully understand what we're doing and remind them of the strategy. This is a long-term play. We can't fix this stuff overnight, but we have a plan to do it. And I think that's going to be pleasing to everybody who's worried about our deficit and our debt.
And Donald Trump, what's your relationship like with him now? You've become, I mean, he's called the sort of the second speaker. You've been working hand in glove, I know, with this.
We have. I mean, we've been working together now almost a decade. I mean, I came to Congress in January 2017 as a freshman in Congress. At the same time, he was introduced to Washington. So we sort of walked through a lot of those valleys together and built a very close relationship, one of trust and close friendship. And he calls me all the time. You know, we talk through strategy, and I think it's very important for the country to have a president, a commander chief, and a speaker of the House who have a great working relationship. Certainly, we're in the same party and have the same policy and agenda in mind.
Because it didn't happen with Paul Ryan, did it? I mean, you saw that.
Yeah, and it wasn't Paul's fault. The two men had just never known one another, and no one expected Trump to win in 2016. And when he did, it was a shocking all thing. And the leadership in the Congress at the time was being introduced to the president as everyone else in Washington was. So they had a big disadvantage there. They had to forge that kind of relationship in the middle of the fire. We have the benefit of having had long history together and been through a lot together. And
the impeachment.
Yes, I was one of his attorneys twice, and I served on the Judiciary Committee, which was ground zero for a lot of the lawfare that they engaged in against the president, against President Trump. He's the most maligned and attacked public figure in all of the history of American politics. He's also the most resilient. And so I so deeply respect that about him and the fact that he can't hold him down. And I made the comment on the anniversary of the Butler shooting a couple of days ago.
And literally, nobody can say this is L, like on Mike Johnson's part. This is a W because he's being so transparent and honest here. When he says President Trump is one of the most attacked political figures in history, like that goes without argument, especially when he was no longer in office. Like the way that they tried to prosecute him and constantly sending him to court. And I mean, you even had some liberals that were like, we've literally never seen anything like this. Like they were like, we have no idea what's going on. This should not be happening to someone even that was prior to the president. Like, you literally had liberals and Republicans losing their mind over how much they were prosecuting Donald Trump. Well, we know why they were trying to do that, right? Because they surely thought that if he was prosecuted so much in front of the American people, there was no way anyone would ever put him back into the Oval Office. Well, they were extremely wrong about that part. But Mike Johnson, I can appreciate his level of transparency here, because a lot of people would not be willing to say that. And it's just true, whether you like Donald Trump or not. Literally, it was liberals who didn't even like him were like, I'm not going to lie, the amount that they're sending him to court is kind of bogus right now. So everyone saw it.
President against President Trump. He's the most maligned and attacked public figure in all of the history of American politics. He's also the most resilient. And so I so deeply respect that about him, and the fact that he can't hold it down. And I made the comment on the anniversary of the Butler shooting a couple of days ago that he's a different person now than he was in the first term. He's more thoughtful, contemplative. He thinks very carefully about decisions, and is open to counsel on it. I mean, I think his head and his heart are in exactly the right place where we would all want them to be.
And why has he changed?
Well, I think surviving two failed assassination attempts would get him his attention. It makes him think deeply, I think, about his legacy, his place in history.
And God?
And God, yeah. And he and I talk about that openly.
Really?
Everybody knows where I stand on this.
Yes.
I told him right after the first attempt, I said, there are no accidents. I believe in luck. I believe that was providential. God spared your life on the world stage. 64 days later, after the second failed assassination attempt, when the Secret Service found a gun in the bushes on the golf course in Florida, providentially, my wife and I were landing at Mar-a-Lago to meet with him right after that round of golf. And it just so happened the way it all worked. We wound up at Mar-a-Lago together, and he and I, my wife, Susie Wiles, and Hogan Gidley, who works on my staff, used to work on his. The five of us sat in the corner at Mar-a-Lago when the place was locked down before the all clear for almost 3 hours. And had right after him, he came in his golf attire, and we sat and processed that. And it was a very
Did you
Ready to lose the hair?
Did you pray?
Hair?
That was a
With
good
shoes
question
by
to
hand,
ask.
you can regain your hair.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I don't know. I prayed over him.
Yes.
But I tell you what, I told him, I said, God's not spared your life twice on the world stage. It's
No,
thing.
my
It's
fault
no
about
small
that,
thing.
guys.
And
Sorry about my
clearly
late.
you're going to win the election, and you're going to be raised up to run the greatest country in the history of the world for the second time. What a profound thing that is. And man, that settled on him. And you can see it on his countenance of his face. And he's spoken openly about that ever since. He says it routinely. How God saved his life. I believe that. I believe millions of Americans believe and understand that.
Yeah.
And he's upheld by the prayer of a lot of people every day. It's a profound thing.
And you had an incident yourself, didn't you, in 23 when you were at Mar-a-Lago and your two older sons, I think 18 and 13, almost drowned.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's a long story. The short version is I was down there raising money. I'd been speaker for about a month. It was in November of 23. Yeah, that's right. And my boys were on Thanksgiving break for school, so they went with me. And my oldest son has now just completed his freshman year at the Naval Academy. And great athlete,
Hey.
wants to be special forces and all that.
Nice.
And his younger brother, also a great athlete, but they were out in the Atlantic and got caught in a rip current and pulled far out to sea.
Scary.
I was inside the building having meetings with donors, and my security detail ran and burst in the room and said, "Sir, you need to get on the beach," and I could tell in their faces. Long story short, they got pulled far out and they almost drowned. My oldest son was holding his younger brother, 13-year-old brother, up, and he almost drowned, and the younger one almost did as well, Jack and Will. They went to the ER, had their lungs pumped. I mean, it was quite an ordeal. They're great swimmers, but the rip current was so strong that day, and they got pulled far, far out. And the only reason they were saved is because a parasailor happened to be going by and saw just my youngest son's head right before he went under, waving for help. And the guy diverted the beach, and they sent the jet skis out, and the rest is history. So the president, after I got them kind of nursed back to help, we flew back home to Louisiana early in the trip, and the president found out about it 24 hours later. I didn't even tell him. We had dinner with him the night before, my sons and I. And he called me, and he was so alarmed by what he heard, and he said, "Mike, it's like a miracle." I said, "It is. Had it not been for the parasailor, we would have lost one of my sons." And he was so struck by that because he's very close to his sons. It just really resonated in his heart. So fast forward to the Butler, Pennsylvania event. Many months later, when that happened, when I spoke to him after that, I said, God saved your life just as did my boys in Mar-a-Lago. And he had already acknowledged that was true. God works in mysterious ways sometimes, teaching us all these lessons, but that was a tough one. Yeah.
And I know that you do some amazing impersonations of Donald Trump. Can you do one for us?
No, I just hear his voice in my head when I'm relaying a conversation we've had. It comes out in his voice,
What did you say about the One Big Beautiful Bill? Was there something
Well, quick story. So
Yeah.
we were, when we named it, we were in the Oval Office. We were sitting in front of the resident deskies at the desk, and Thune was here, and Jason Smith, the Ways and Means Chair, and I think JD was there, and other staffers, and the president, what are we going to name it? What are we going to call it? And Jason Smith says, well, sir, we got a few great options. You know, these are, clever acronyms. He goes, no, I just think we call it the One Big Beautiful, but don't you think that's great? That's so simple. It's great. And he passed it around to us on a piece of paper in big bold font. One Big Beautiful. And he goes, now, can we put an exclamation point? I said, sir, no, we can't do an exclamation point. That's not a thing in legislation, you know. He has dialed in
Exclamation point.
in recent memory. I don't know that there is a precedent for a president who's so engaged and
He's unique.
He's very unique that way in the country.
I just love Mike Johnson. Like the way that he deals with them. He just laughs and he's like, no, sir, we can't put the exclamation point in. That's not a thing with legislation.
Needs it right now. And the American First Agenda is no longer a slogan. It's now the law of the land because of the big, beautiful bill. We got more to do.
Do you think MAGA will survive when President Trump is gone, when he's no longer in office? Is there anyone else that could keep that coalition together?
He and I talked about this about 48 hours ago. He called me early in the morning, whatever today is, I don't know, a couple of days ago. And that was the subject, part of the subject of the conversation. I think the movement goes forward. It won't be the same without him, but he's done a recalibration of our party in many ways. We brought in new demographics, big groups of people that have not been with us probably since the early 80s of Reagan.
Former Democrat voters.
That's right. We're a working class party, as we should be. And we represent the core principles. And I'm one of the people who's trying to keep us tied to the moorings,
Shout out to Mike Johnson. I'm going to stop that there. I really love that conversation. If you guys want to see the rest of that, you can just head over to Podforce 1 with Miranda Devine. They're usually interviewing, I should already be subscribed there, but they're usually interviewing people from President Trump's cabinet, certain politicians. I like it so far. I watched a couple of different episodes there and interviews, and it's a good one. So it's titled Inside the Trump-Elon Fallout and the $1.5 trillion bill that changed everything. So you guys can head over there and take a look at that. We're going to switch gears now and go over to Larry with Larry O'Connor. He covered what Byron Donalds is planning could erase the entire Biden presidency. All right, about a 15-minute clip. Probably go about 10 minutes in. Let's take a listen.
Yesterday in the House Oversight Committee, there was a hearing about the Joe Biden presidency, most specifically if there was a cover-up over not only his mental unfitness to be president of the United States, but also whether anyone else was actually doing those functions. Their key witness, Bud the Fifth. You'll see that coming up in a sec. Byron Donalds sits on that committee, one of our favorite congressmen from Florida. What he had to say, eviscerating this witness and eviscerating the Biden presidency, that's classic. And that's coming up in a sec. But first, to the hearing. This guy is known as, around D.C., as Dr.
This is Joe Biden's top aide. So this was the guy who was the top aide during the Biden administration. And this would be the gentleman who decided to go to federal court and plead the fifth 7 to 8 different times instead of just answering the question. Unbelievable.
Jill Biden's work husband.
His work
He was
husband.
chief of staff for the First Lady
Oh my
during the
gosh,
Biden
that's
presidency.
crazy.
And it's said that he worked with Dr. Jill to help Joe on some of his
Husband is
off
crazy.
days, if you know what I mean. Well, he was asked a series of very simple questions yesterday, and his answers, well,
We're crazy.
they tell us quite a story about what happened there.
There were
in the
no
Biden White
answers.
House.
Mr. Bernal, did you ever advise President Joe Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
My goodness, he could have just said no. Like, this is gonna really annoy me because I've seen like Ben Shapiro cover this. You know, Bernal, this is disgusting. Like, you have the right to plead the fifth. Like, we have that right. We have that right as American citizens. But I mean, come on, dude. Like 7 to 8 different times in court is kind of crazy. Like, that's wild to me.
Did you ever advise President Joe Biden to pardon his son, Hunter Biden?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Thank you. We're going to go off the record real quick.
Hey everyone, I'm Joe, founder and CEO of Viore, and today I'm excited to talk about the short that's...
Okay, we'll go back on the record. Mr. Bernal, was President Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president?
On the advice of counsel,
My
I respectfully
goodness,
decline
he
to
can't-
answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
This guy.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, did any unelected official or family member of President Joe Biden execute the duties of the presidency?
On the advice of counsel, I
My
respectfully
gosh,
decline
look
to
at this
answer the
guy. He
question
can just say
pursuant to
no.
my
Look
Fifth
what he's
Amendment
doing.
rights under the Constitution.
Ridiculous.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully
Oh my
decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Mr. Bernal, did President Joe Biden ever instruct you to lie regarding his health at any time, including but not limited in your testimony?
I believe this is his counsel. I don't like his counsel's bad. Like you gotta be kidding me. You know, you have some defense attorneys that are gonna say, yeah, he did the right thing here because you have the right to remain silent. That's why I said it's an American right that we have. But I mean, come on, man. Like, we know you're also not supposed to go to a court of law and lie. Like, it makes, if you know the answer to some of these questions, like, it's kind of driving me crazy because literally when they ask him, like, under any circumstances, was there anyone else who performed the duties of the President of the United States? He could just say no. Like, literally, he could just be like, no, they would. The fact that he's literally invoking the Fifth Amendment, I'm like, why are you invoking the Fifth Amendment on something like that? If it didn't happen, it didn't happen. But he doesn't want to answer anything. And Bernal, I was like, this is disgusting.
Congress to that.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Bernal has invoked the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Mr. Bernal, please be very clear. Are you declining to answer the question put to you solely on the ground that you believe the answer will incriminate you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer the question pursuant to my Fifth Amendment rights under the Constitution.
Oh my.
Mr. Bernal, is it your intention to decline to answer all questions put to you today by the committee on the basis of the Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?
I can represent that is his intention.
All right, so that was enlightening, was it not? That's Anthony Bernal, Chief of Staff to
It was
Joe
ridiculous.
Biden, and again, as I mentioned earlier, often referred to as Joe Biden's work husband. I just want to review in case
Work
you missed
husband
it,
is
the
wild.
questions that Mr. Bernal just invoked the Fifth Amendment over. Fifth Amendment, of course, protects every American from being compelled to answer a question that might end up incriminating them. You know, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, right? He's under oath in these hearings. Anything that he says could be used against them in a court of law. What question did he refuse to answer? What question was asked that he believed he had to plead the Fifth because it
Seriously,
might incriminate him for potential criminal
every single
wrongdoing?
question.
Was President Joe Biden fit to exercise the duties of the president?
Yes or no?
Why would answering that question incriminate you?
That's what I'm.
Why would answering that?
This is what I'm saying, Larry. Like, I'm literally like, I have to pause this because this drove me crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, this is like, none of the Democrats can get upset if they want to launch an investigation into this at this point, because that was absurd to me. I literally can understand him invoking it, maybe one or two of the questions, but the fact that he did it every single time, I'm literally like, dude, some of the questions that this guy is, because I knew Larry's going to go over some of them, but I knew from last night because I watched a couple people now react to this. Some of the questions that he's being asked, literally, he should not be invoking the Fifth Amendment. Like, how would this question incriminate you unless you know something that is illegal? How else would it incriminate you? So I was like, none of the Democrats can get upset if they decide to launch an investigation into the Joe Biden administration, because this was wild. And Bernal, I would literally say he pretty much caused it, because invoking the Fifth Amendment that many times instead of just saying yes or no to some of those questions is wild to me.
Question puts you in danger of self-incrimination for a criminal proceeding. Other question: did any unelected official or family member of President Joe Biden execute the duties of the presidency?
Yes or no?
He refused to answer that question on the grounds that it may incriminate him. Did President Joe Biden ever instruct you to lie regarding his health at any time, including but not limited to your testimony to Congress today?
Wild. Like, so what did Joe Biden tell him to lie about something? Because he literally feels like if he answers that question, it's going to incriminate him. That's why I'm like, this guy, like, his counsel's bad.
And to that question, he also pled the Fifth. Okay. As I said, Mr. Bernal didn't say much. In fact, he just said the same thing over and over again. But what he didn't say spoke volumes. Byron Donalds,
Yeah, no kidding.
Congressman from Florida, here's his reaction.
News first. That's just crazy.
That's what I
You
said.
can't answer a simple
This
question.
is literally that's what I said. I'm like, this is why I love Byron Donalds, because I was sitting here last night and I'm like, this is insane. Like, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just, maybe it's the referee in me, right? Like, those of you guys that don't know the Enneagram, one of my top numbers is 1. They call that the referee, right? So it's like, it's the referee in me, because I'm listening to this dude and in my mind, I'm just like, foul, because I feel like he's just completely violating the entire court system. Like, dude, we have the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment, but are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Even people who are guilty answer some questions. Like, this dude didn't answer anything. And like I said, some defense attorneys will say, like, he did the right thing. If he didn't answer a question, he can't incriminate himself. But bro, what you didn't say, like, that's crazy to me. Like, there's some of the questions, that's why I'm glad that Larry went over the questions like that, because some people may not have heard them, so maybe they're thinking like, oh, well, as an American citizen, he has the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment. I'm like, dude, some of these questions do not need that. Like, they don't need that. Just say yes or no. Like, you literally now you have Joe Biden looking crazy, because one of the questions was, did the president ever ask you to lie? So you feel like if you answer that question, that it's going to incriminate you. If the answer is no, it could not incriminate you. But if it's yes, I guess it could.
Donalds, Congressman from Florida, here's his reaction.
News first. That's just crazy. You can't answer a simple question about the former president's ability to discharge his duties, and you worked in the White House as chief of staff to the first lady,
Top 8.
and you come in here and you plead the Fifth. He can say whatever he wants in his testimony, which, by the way, his attorney read. He would even read his own statement. His attorney read his statement for him. So he came in there, it said that him pleading the Fifth is not an admission of guilt or anything about what was going on in the Biden White House, or was to give any inkling to the fact that Joe Biden was lacking in capability. The fact that he couldn't make any statement, the fact that the White House doctor couldn't make any statement, and they both pled the Fifth, which is their constitutional right to do.
Right.
And we respect the Constitution, like every American does. But the fact that they are now hiding behind the Constitution so that they don't have to tell the truth to the American people about Joe Biden's capabilities and mental faculties while he was president of the United States is not just shocking, it's stunning, and it demonstrates the level of corruption that was going on in that administration. The chairman is being nice. I don't have to be. This is corruption at the highest level. Because if you cannot answer a simple question about Joe Biden's capabilities, then that further demonstrates that he was not in charge of his administration.
Absolutely.
And if he was not in charge of...
And the reason why I'm wholeheartedly agreeing with Byron Donalds on this is because right now, if these same questions were asked to Mike Johnson, if they were asked to Caroline Leavitt, if they were asked to Tulsi Gabbard or Pete Hegseth or J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio, they would not all plead the Fifth on these questions. There's nobody that could convince me of that right now. Not if right now they were brought in next week on Tuesday. and ask, like, at any point in time, did President Trump ask you to lie about his health? No, none of them are going to say yes to that, and none of them are going to plead the fifth on that. And this is why this makes Joe Biden's administration look so disgusting, because I can literally, Byron Donald's frustration, it resonates with me. It does, because I literally, when I watched this, I was like, this is insane. This is insane. The fact that it's a constitutional right, I've said it time and time again on the live, so it's not like they can't say, hey, you can't plead the fifth, but I'm just saying, like, what you don't say says a lot. And this guy literally didn't say anything.
Demonstrates that he was not in charge of his administration. And if he was not in charge of his administration, then every order, every bill that was signed, every memorandum, as far as I'm concerned, are null and void. And congressional Democrats need to actually step into the light and not hide behind this stuff or run away from it, because everything that administration did, as far as I'm concerned, is unlawful. If he did not have the ability to discharge his duties,
imagine being able to build anything.
That's a problem.
Just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
then anything that he signed, or the auto pen signed, or whatever, as far as I'm concerned, is null and void. And where was Kamala Harris? I'm not going to speak for the chairman, I'm going to speak for myself. As far as I'm concerned, every member of the Biden administration at this point needs to be subpoenaed. I don't care if they were a secretary, I don't care if they were a jet.
Kamala Harris was at home. I bet you she was working from home. Like, I bet you she was, because the fact that the top aide answers like this, and so many times during Joe Biden's administration, like, you had a lot of people saying, where's Joe? But then you had 3 times the people saying, where's Kamala Harris? So yeah, she was working from home, bro.
Every member of the Biden administration at this point needs to be subpoenaed. I don't
She
care
was
if they
like,
were
I'm gonna work from
secretary,
home,
I
so
don't
when
care
you
if they
get in
were
trouble,
general.
I wasn't
They
there.
own that company. You can answer questions for this committee.
Does that include Dr. Joe Biden?
Of course. Her right-hand man, listen, Anthony Bernal was the right-hand man. That's her guy, her chief of staff. If he came in here and pled the fifth, I'm sorry. Former First Lady, she gotta come in here and answer questions.
Yeah.
This is not that is the president's wife. I have a wife. James has a wife. Obviously, with family members, you want to do everything you can to protect your family.
Yeah.
But if you can't answer a basic question to the mental capabilities of President Biden, then as far as I'm concerned, you now have the answer to the American people.
Shouldn't the former president or vice president be subpoenaed?
I think Kamala Harris needs to come in and tell us what she knew and when she knew it. She ran for president, so she should be able to tell us what was going on.
Boom, boom, and freaking boom. As far as I'm concerned, every single action that took place in that White House, unless we hear otherwise, was corrupt and invalid. Every document, every executive order, every pardon, I think he left pardon out of there. And at this point, we should subpoena everyone. Should you subpoena the first lady? Yes, we should subpoena the first lady. Should we subpoena the vice president? Yes, we should subpoena the vice president. We're not playing around on this. This is the Constitution.
And
this
Anthony
is the
Bernal
presidency.
and his
We
White
all
House
saw it.
Speaker
We all know
Secretary,
that it was
who just
happening.
left the
And
Democratic
finally,
Party.
we can actually
Everybody.
acknowledge it and get to the truth. And the fact is, Democrats don't want to get to the truth. In fact, Democrats are doing whatever they can to stand in the way of any kind of progress in this country and stand in the way of us actually getting anything done and figuring out what happened in the past. We've seen that playing out with the Russian collusion hoax that's now finally being investigated. We discovered that with the January 6th hearings, where they didn't actually ask Nancy Pelosi any questions about security and the National Guard. They didn't want to hear from the captain of the Capitol Police that day and about the request he made for additional troops. They just wanted a kangaroo court to tell lies to the American people. And now, here we go along the same path. Nothing to see here. Let's move on. What difference?
Smoke
at
but no
this
fire.
point
Yeah,
does it
exactly.
make? In fact, I want to show you something that just happened an hour ago in the Senate hearing. This is the Judiciary Committee, where they were voting on judges. They voted on the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Janine Pirro, and they also voted on a judge, goes by the last name of Bo, very controversial. Democrats don't like him because this guy loves the Constitution. They want to keep him off the court because he would actually be a great candidate for the Supreme Court. So they're trying to stop him, they're trying to block him, and there's a bunch of activist groups that fund this kind of behavior. Well, watch what happened when they tried to block the vote out of committee today. Check this out.
Sir, with all appeal to your decency, with all appeals to your integrity, with all appeals to past jurisdiction and past precedent, why are you doing this?
I think I did. I think I did cover some of this, and if I didn't, I know I meant to, because this was so Cory Booker here. This is Cory Booker right here. This is the guy who the Democrats said, all hail Cory Booker, because he made like a 24-hour speech that was literally crazy. But that's Cory Booker. He loses it because he starts talking to the chairman about why is it that you're not willing to hear our side. You know, this is how the government's been run historically. It doesn't make any sense why you're doing it this way. A lot of the Democrats get super mad and start to storm out. So I thought this was literally crazy. So I'm glad that Larry actually brought this in here.
When they tried to block the vote out of committee today, check this out.
So now I know why, because I knew Cory Booker was doing that, and they were saying that there was some legislation that, okay, so the Democrats were trying to block legislation, but they're trying to block it from someone that's on their side. So there's a Democrat that likes the Constitution and they don't like that. So now they're trying to block someone that actually could make them look good.
So they're trying to stop him, they're trying to block him in court, because he would actually also voted on a judge, goes by the last name of Bo, very controversial. Democrats don't like him because this guy loves the Constitution. They want to keep him off the court because he would actually be a great candidate for the Supreme Court. So they're trying to stop him, they're trying to block him, and there's a bunch of activist groups that fund this kind of behavior. Well, watch what happened when they tried to block the vote out of committee today. Check this out.
Sir, with all appeals to your decency, with all appeals to your integrity, with all appeals to past jurisdiction and past precedent, why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court. That's how we have here.
This is wrong. To violate your own rules without going by the mandates of the parliamentarian. This is unbelievable. There's a way to do this. If you want to force this through, if you want to ram this through.
All right, so Cory Booker, Spartacus, keeps talking and talking and talking. And you can see on that side of the screen, all the Democrats have gotten up and left. This was planned. This was choreographed. This was orchestrated. This was scripted. They all got up at the same time. And Cory says, you know what, I'll stay. I'll just keep talking. That's good. I'm good at that. No one listens to me anyway. So Grassley,
I told him 24 hours straight
he's in his
before.
80s. He's got more than enough of this nonsense from the Democrats. So he just says, yeah, I don't care. We're going to go on with the vote. So check this out. I'm going to bring the volume up again. Booker, as you can see, just keeps talking and talking and talking. Literally no one is listening to him. Grassley is continuing the roll call vote of all the Republicans on the nomination. Watch, listen.
Sir, God bless America. You are a good man. You are a decent man. Why are you doing this? What is Donald Trump saying to you that are making you do something which is violating the decorum of this committee, the rules of this committee, the decency and the respect that we have each other to at least hear each other out? I sat through so many long speeches of my colleagues, heard their objections, listened with sincerity to try to see what their arguments are. But we are not doing that. Sir, this is wrong, and you know it. There are some people on this committee who are the least firebrand people, and they've walked out. Some of the least controversial people in the Senate, some of the people that work the hardest to find bipartisan common ground have just walked out of this committee. And you don't even seem to care, but I know you do. I know your heart, Senator Grassley. This is wrong. I know the kind of person you are, and you know this is wrong. This is not necessary. What is another half an hour to allow senators to be heard? It's what the Constitution mandates. It's the ideals of the United States Senate.
The Constitution does not mandate the rules of the Senate. This is the thing about Cory Booker. I guess this is a skill set of his. Remember, he set a record for speaking over 8 hours. Yeah, what did he say? Quick, somebody tell me what he said. Nothing. Nobody can tell me what he said. He literally spoke for over 8 hours and nobody knows what the... Actually, didn't he speak for 24 hours? It was Hakeem Jeffries who spoke for over 8 hours in the House and said nothing. I think Booker went on for like literally a day, standing and talking without saying anything. This is his skill set. Everybody has a gift from God. I do believe that. I think God has given every single person on this planet a certain gift, and it's up to us to find out and figure out what that gift is. And Cory Booker, God bless him, he's figured out what his gift from God is. He can talk and talk and talk and not say a damn thing. By the way, I love the fact that his colleagues, all the empty chairs there on the panel, they all recognize it too. Tell you what, Corey,
Yeah, they're all
we're all going to
ignoring
get
them
up
too.
and leave. It's going to be great on TV. Trust me, you'll get booked on MSNBC tonight. Rachel Maddow will love it. They'll want to hear your story. We're all going to get up and leave. We're going to go have a cocktail. You just keep talking, Corey. Yeah, you just go ahead. You speak for all of us. Go ahead.
Undermining of the well-being and the integrity of this Senate and this committee that I for so long I've been so honored to be a part of. This is wrong, sir, and I join with my colleagues in leaving. This is a sham. This is wrong. We're better than this.
Back to the floor. Now we'll have to vote on these nominees for U.S. Attorney because we don't have enough people on the other side, so we can't go by
He literally
voice
just
vote.
keeps going.
So the clerk will call the roll on Kurt Almy.
All right. That's enough. God bless Chuck Grassley too. He's like, well, we're going to have to go on with this as well. And he did, and they did, and the business got done, and the nominees got advanced to the floor of the Senate. And Democrats, again, just as an example here, so that, you know, they're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in doing their job. They're not interested in doing anything really, in moving any legislation or moving nominations or getting to the bottom of what happened in the Biden White House and answering questions. No, we're just going to plead the fifth on something as basic as was there anyone else working in the White House on behalf of the president? They don't want any of that done. They just want to stop, they want to stand in the way, and they want to be drama queens. They're theater kids. They want to showboat
this
for
is
you
crazy.
because it's good for TV.
And this is how you know, right here.
We'll have to vote.
A damn thing. By the way, I love the fact that his colleagues, all the empty chairs there on the panel, they all recognize it too. Tell you what, Corey, we're all going to get up and leave. It's going to be great on TV. Trust me, you'll get booked on MSNBC tonight. Rachel Maddow will love it.
he's
They'll want to hear
definitely
you.
did.
Integrity of this Senate and this committee that I for so long I've been so honored to be a part of. This is wrong, sir, and I join with my colleagues in leaving. This is a sham. This is wrong. We're better than this.
Back to the floor. Now we'll have to vote on these nominees for
Bro,
U.S.
Chuck
Attorney because
Grassley, like he literally is
the
not
other
even
side, so we
paying him any
can't go by
mind.
voice vote. So the clerk will call the roll on Kurt Almy.
Oh man, shout out to Larry. That's crazy. Yeah, I agree with him though. Just a bunch of drama queens. And honestly, and the only reason why I say that is like, okay, you know, like at this point, the chairman has obviously heard them out. So it's not like he's completely ignoring them. That's just not the order of a Senate hearing. But what it is that they want to go farther. They want to talk about more. They want to dispute, appeal, you know, fight back more. And the chairman's like, listen, we're moving on. So Cory Booker goes on his tangent like he normally does. He's the one that's known in the Democratic Party that can speak. Larry said he thought it was 8. Hakeem Jeffries was actually 8. Cory was 24. And I think I said that in the live before I started this clip, that he was 24 hours because I knew it. They made a big deal out of it. Like, Cory Booker breaks Senate record with 24-hour speech. And I'm like, that's why when Larry said, what did he say? Somebody tell me. Because no one was really listening. Just kind of like the way Chuck Grassley is here now. So I thought that was absolutely crazy. Byron Donalds makes an excellent point. Everyone needs to be subpoenaed. I can literally say, I can honestly say that I agree with this. And the reason why I say literally is because I agree with every single person that he said. So he said the First Lady, Vice President, someone asked about Anthony Bernal. I said the White House press secretary who was a part of Biden's administration. Everyone, Kamala Harris, I think I did say the vice president, everyone needs to be subpoenaed at this point. Because the way Anthony Bernal did that, I said if anybody put them on the spot, it was him. You're not answering basic questions, dude. Like, if they decide to launch an investigation at this point, that's why I said the Democrats literally can't be upset. You're going to put this guy on the stand, like, and this was Kamala Harris's guy, and he can't answer one question. I'm like, at least answer 2 of them. Like, he just pleaded the fifth the whole way across. And then the guy finally says, is it your intention to invoke the Fifth Amendment on every single question we asked you? And his defense says, yep, I can tell you right now that's his intention. So I just thought that was wild. I'm glad Byron Donalds got up and said it. He said the chairman's being nice. I don't have to be nice. That's crazy. And I appreciated his transparency because I was like, oh yeah, that's a little bit more than crazy. That's ridiculous. All right, guys. So we're going to switch gears and we're going to head over to Matt Walsh. Shout out to Matt Walsh. Joe Biden was one of the worst presidents in American history, part 2. Proof of your liberal friend. I am in one of the states that Matt Walsh was once a radio host for. So I like Matt Walsh, listen to him a lot on the side. I've done my best to bring him to the channel more so we can sit and react to him together. So let's take a listen.
When you forgive debt, you're not just disappearing debt, it's always paying for it.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not.
One of the excuses you always hear when there is a massive failure by the Biden-Harris administration is that no one could have possibly seen it coming. No one could have predicted that the Inflation Reduction Act would actually increase inflation. No one could have predicted that the Afghan government would collapse immediately after we pulled out our troops, leading to a security breakdown and the deaths of 13 U.S. military personnel. No one could have predicted that shipping pallets of cash to Iran would provide funding for a new campaign of terrorist attacks by Iran's proxies, and so on. The truth, though, of course, is that all of these disasters were easily foreseeable. The problem is that the people in charge of predicting the consequences of all these policies are either grossly incompetent or malicious. At every step, they have lied to Americans about what they know or should know was about to happen. And there's maybe no better illustration of this problem than the federal government's response to Hurricane Helene, which has now killed more than 200 people, and 200 people may be a gross underestimate when all is said and done. We still do not even know the full scale of this disaster, except that it's massive. So take a look at what the DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was saying just 3 months ago. Mayorkas, as head of the DHS, oversees the Federal Disaster Relief Agency, FEMA. Well, on June 21st, Mayorkas went in front of the cameras to boast that FEMA was, quote, tremendously prepared for the upcoming hurricane season. In fact, he doesn't just say that FEMA is tremendously prepared for hurricanes. He says that they're prepared for wildfires, extreme heat, a variety of other disasters. He can handle all of it, he says. Watch.
FEMA is tremendously prepared. This is what we do. This is what they do. And the key here, Rebecca, is also to make sure that the communities who are potentially impacted are prepared as well. And it's not just hurricanes and wildfires, also extreme heat, which certainly some parts of the United States are already experiencing.
We're here in a warehouse here in Delaware, and we're unboxing this brand new air conditioning system, and all thanks to our summer's.
This is what we do, says Mayorkas as he smiles. It's all very reassuring. Now, admittedly, the words tremendously prepared can be interpreted in a few different ways. And unfortunately, Mayorkas wasn't more specific, but ordinarily, when the official overseeing a disaster relief agency says that they are tremendously prepared, they're saying that at a minimum, they have all the resources they need to quickly and effectively respond to whatever natural disasters may occur. So it was more than a little confusing to hear the DHS Secretary on Wednesday announcing that actually FEMA is out of money. They don't even have the cash to make it through hurricane season. Watch.
As Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have.
Now this is the same person. This is Mayorkas again. Now all of a sudden he changes his tune. He says, Mayorkas warns FEMA doesn't have enough funding. Now, the first clip that Matt showed, he said, this is what FEMA is extremely ready. This is what we do. This is what they do. That's what he said, right? That they are extremely prepared. Now he warns FEMA doesn't have enough funding to last through hurricane season. Okay, so you didn't know that when you made the first claim that FEMA was over prepared. We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
We're expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
Now, it's easy to become desensitized to all the lying that we've heard from this administration. It's easy to roll your eyes when you see even more evidence that these people, at a minimum, and at best, are grossly incompetent. But this is truly another level. You know, imagine this kind of thing happening in literally any business in the country. Imagine the cook at IHOP telling his boss that he's
tremendously prepared for the breakfast rush, and then the customers show up and actually turns out
They don't
there's
have
no
eggs.
flour, there's no eggs, there's no
Yeah,
bacon.
like that's crazy.
They need an emergency shipment because they're all out of ingredients. How long do you think that cook would have a job exactly? 5 seconds? Less? As you just heard at the tail end of that Fox News report, this is starting to look like something much worse than incompetence. It looks a bit like embezzlement, actually. First of all, didn't the government's fiscal year just start on October 1st? How are they out of money already? And why exactly was FEMA administering billion-dollar services, quote-unquote, to foreign nationals, including illegal aliens living inside this country?
Right, and Matt makes a good point there because he says if the fiscal year starts October 1st, how are they already out of money? They would only be 9 months in. So 9 months in, you have 3 months left till you reach the fiscal year ending, and you're out of money with 3 months left. I would say, yeah, embezzlement is not a far-fetched idea.
It's a bit like embezzlement, actually. First of all, didn't the government's fiscal year just start on October 1st? How are they out of money already? And why exactly was FEMA administering billion-dollar services, quote-unquote, to foreign nationals, including illegal aliens living inside this country? As the New York Post reports, quote, the Department of Homeland Security allocated $640 million this year in FEMA-administered funds to aid state and local governments coping with the influx of asylum seekers. And DHS allocated $780 million for the migrant crisis last year through the FEMA Emergency Food and Shelter Program, which funds relief not associated with natural disasters, and the FEMA Shelter and Services Program, which was authorized in late 2022 by Congress to respond to the migrant crisis. Now, that money, according to the DHS website, goes to families and individuals encountered by the Department of Homeland Security. But it doesn't need to be an emergency or a natural disaster or anything like that. These people just need to come into this country illegally, and they're eligible. And so they're getting paid while our own citizens are stranded in their homes and drowning. And in response to this reporting, the DHS claimed that Congress didn't authorize that $1.4 billion to go to American citizens. It was supposedly earmarked for the migrant crisis, meaning it was never intended for Americans.
Nope.
Which is supposed to be reassuring. It's supposed to be a defense when they say, oh no, yeah, we were never going to spend that money on Americans. Yeah, we believe you. That's the problem, you scumbags. But in any event, that still doesn't explain why the DHS secretary said FEMA was well prepared just 3 months ago. And more importantly, it doesn't explain why we're spending so much money on providing food and shelter to illegal migrants when we don't even have enough money to fund disaster relief for American citizens. But we are in a country now where there can be American citizens in an American town in this country who are stranded in their homes for days on end. I mean, that should not happen at all in this country. It is a disgrace that could happen at all. With all the resources that we have, that there can be people stranded for days on end. How are we not in a position where we can get them out within hours? With all the money that's being spent.
It makes a good point.
That's not even getting into the hundreds of billions of dollars we've spent to, we've sent to Ukraine, which comes out to more than $5,000 per Ukrainian.
Which is wild.
And keep that in mind, $5,000 per Ukrainian, because by comparison, American citizens are not getting nearly as much. As the Post reports, quote, a relatively paltry $4 million has been paid directly to families and individuals in the week since Hurricane Helene ravaged the southeast, killing at least 202 people, causing severe flood damage from Florida to North Carolina.
And if you guys are wondering, well, what does any of this has to do with illegal immigrants? Right here in the news, it says it. Feds say there's no money left to respond to hurricanes after FEMA spent $1.4 billion on migrants.
Into the southeast, killing at least 202 people, causing severe flood damage from Florida to North Carolina. For her part, acting President Kamala Harris has announced that affected families in this country are eligible for a grand total of $750 in FEMA assistance. Watch.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity. But also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied for online, and I encourage people to do that. FEMA will just basically verify your address, and then process should take hold.
Wow, $750. You know, your home is destroyed. You've lost literally everything. You've lost everything that you've ever owned is gone. And you're going to get $750. Meanwhile, civilians who try to help are being prevented from doing so. Here's Congressman.
Dude, this is hilarious to me because that, like, I can't say, Matt Walsh is making good points here. So when that happens, those American citizens that are affected by the hurricane, Kamala Harris went on and said they were willing to give them $750. But migrants in New York were getting a food stamp card or a benefits card that had $1,500 on it. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. Because for the American citizens that are impacted by a hurricane, that is what FEMA should be for, right? The hurricane relief and for things dealing with American citizens. But because they decided to spend $1.4 billion on migrants, the American families that were affected by the hurricane got $750. While the migrants that were coming in New York through the Biden administration and the app and all of the things that they had set up, they were getting $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Yeah. And then people wonder why so many American people are upset about migrants.
Corey Mills explaining that because Joe Biden was in the area, the federal government just prevented civilian rescue pilots and aid workers from saving lives in the aftermath of this disaster. Watch.
The other thing is that yesterday, for President Biden's, dog and pony show to come in and see photos, he put a 30-mile TFR, which is basically a restriction, in the air zone, which means that he actually stopped from 12 o'clock until 4 p.m. He stopped air traffic and helos from transferring supplies, dropping SAR teams, picking up individuals from medevacs. So that was not only irresponsible, but if you're going to come a week later, at least make sure that you're not trying to, hinder in any way further the actual operations that are being led by civilian organizations and veterans such as myself and others that are trying to do what is right. So I found the entire response so far to be not just lacking, but irresponsible and inept.
So to recap, FEMA doesn't provide early warning or timely mandatory evacuation orders. They don't provide any significant assistance after the storm. They divert huge amounts of resources to foreign nationals who have no legal justification for being in this country. They shut down the airspace to block civilian rescue flights. They say they're out of money. And just 3 months ago, they told us they were tremendously prepared for hurricane season. Watching all this, you have to ask yourself why you're even paying taxes. I mean, why are we paying FEMA billions of dollars every year only to make disasters even more deadly?
Yeah, not save American people. It's crazy.
Why are we funneling our money to people who clearly hate us and have no interest in helping, doing the job that they're paid to do? Ask yourself, if the Biden-Harris administration wanted to go out of its way to punish American citizens, wanted to actually cause suffering.
Want to keep your hairline where it is? Through Hims.com, you can explore a range of options.
What exactly would they be doing differently? At some point, complete and total incompetence is indistinguishable from malice. And anyone who's been paying attention to FEMA over the past year, as well as everyone living in the areas that have been decimated by this hurricane, knows that we are now well past that point. Your online activity isn't private. Data brokers track everything you do online, your ground.
Shout out to Matt Walsh. I'm going to stop that there because I want you guys to head over to his channel and give Matt his due views. This video was not super long. He only did over 20 minutes. We're about 12 minutes into it. So I'm going to stop it right there as he goes into his next part. You guys head over to his channel and watch the rest. It's titled Joe Biden was one of the worst presidents in American history, part 2. So yeah, I have to agree with him. And if you guys are wondering like how is what he's talking about, like how does this reference Joe Biden? Well, a lot of this stuff happened under the Biden administration. This is why we see Kamala Harris speaking, right? Because she wouldn't be speaking right now under the Trump administration. We can tell that footage is older because she's not a part of the Trump administration. She was a part of the Biden administration, right? The administration that told the American citizens that have been paying taxpayer dollars into FEMA that anyone who's been immediately impacted and needs food, diapers, formula, things like that, we will give you a $750 check. which I agree with Matt Walsh and said, how can American citizens not be mad about that when we had illegal immigrants coming into New York, Chicago, all these large cities, and they were getting a benefits card that started off with anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 on it. That is actually a known fact. So make it make sense. And then people don't understand, well, why are we so mad about the people coming here? Like, everyone deserves to come to America and have a fair chance. Yeah, they do, if they do it the right way. They absolutely do. I have no problem with people coming here from other countries. I fought for the country, right? So I don't care about it. If I don't care about it, I don't think people who didn't fight should care about it. But you should care if they're not doing it the right way, because things like this happen. So now we have American citizens getting a $750 check who've lost everything, and people who are coming here with nothing, here's $2,000. It's like, make it make sense. It doesn't make sense, people. All right, we're gonna switch gears now. We're going to go over to, I'm actually gonna, I'm gonna cut the Confederacy one for when we come back in a little bit. I'll leave that. I want to get into this one with Jordan Peterson, question about Jesus, then this happens. So this is George Janko and Jordan Peterson having a conversation. I try to end the live streams often with a Christian clip. Normally it's by Cliff Buell, shout out to Cliff, but every now and then I use someone different. This was a conversation that I thought was good. It's going to be enlightening for some people, so let's take a listen.
Like, if Jesus came down right now, would you be his son? Or would you be somebody who's studying Jesus? Like, where does your heart lie right now? Who is your God?
Jordan Peterson just went on the George Janko podcast, and things got very real, to say the least. Check this out.
Why is it that when people ask you if you're a Christian, you don't really answer it like straightforward, like, yeah, I follow Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian?
The guy reacting to this, by the way, is Daily Dose of Wisdom. Like, shout out to him. Like I said, we've had him on the channel before. I think he does great coverage on political commentary as well as religious commentary when he does do political, but I have reacted to some of his religious commentary before. So shout out to Daily Dose of Wisdom.
Because the question is almost always manipulative. It's not really a question. It's a demand. It's a veiled demand that I declare my allegiance in the manner they see fit at that moment. It's like, no thank you. First of all, that's a relatively private matter. And second, just exactly what the hell are you up to?
I don't think that. So look at George Janko's question here.
Podcast, and things got...
Like, if Jesus came down right now, would you be his son? Or would you be somebody who's studying Jesus? Like, where does your heart lie right now? Who is your God?
Jordan Peterson just went on the George Janko podcast, and things got very real, to say the least. Check this out.
Why is it that when people ask you if you're a Christian, you don't really answer it like straightforward, like, yeah, I follow Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian?
George Janko said, why is it that when people ask you if you're a Christian, you don't really answer it straightforward? You don't just say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I follow Jesus. Like, why is it that? One thing Jordan Peterson said was it's relatively private. I don't agree with that. I do not agree with that. Now, I do know people who are relatively private with their faith. I don't agree with that in the sense that I don't think that that's what Jesus calls us to do. So I don't think Jesus calls us to take our faith and like put it in our pocket and it's like our special thing that we don't share with people and we keep it to ourselves. That actually is not biblical when it comes to faith. Jesus actually calls us to go out and make disciples, and you can't go out and do that if you're not talking about your faith. But nonetheless, Jordan Peterson has come a far way in his faith thus far. So I'm not critical of Jordan Peterson when it comes to this. I just don't agree with that because I have sat with plenty of people who have said that. And usually when people say it's a relatively private manner, the way they're going to articulate the characteristics of God or their level of intimacy with God is usually very low. So this is just from my interactions with people. I'm not saying that I'm going to have the same answer 15 years from now, but thus far, usually it's a person that maybe doesn't have a very prevalent prayer life, like it's not every day, or, you know, when they do pray to God, they're asking for things that they feel are super important or like not things that are really small. So I just don't agree with the fact that, you know, your faith is like a private thing that you keep to yourself.
Because the question is almost always manipulative. It's not really a question. It's a demand. It's a veiled demand that I declare my allegiance in the manner they see fit at that moment. It's like, No, thank you. First of all, that's a relatively private matter. And second, just exactly what the hell are you up to? So that's the general.
But
You
what
know,
about
and
that
I'm
verse?
not interested in trumpeting it. You know, I'm still figuring things out, and I'm trying to explain what I'm learning as I go. And I don't want to parade my virtuous faith, you know, as a proclamation. I think that's false. You know, people can decide for themselves if they're interested what I'm up to by watching. If they're interested what I do, they can derive their own conclusions, and
Judge them by their fruit.
that's the theory, right? Right.
Judge them by their fruit.
And when people say too that they're a Christian, I actually generally don't really know what they mean. I mean, you guys laid it out, and you provided some indication of what you meant.
I'm going to play that moment in a second here because this is George Janko's wife, and she actually, I think, gives a kernel of truth to Dr. Peterson, a story, a perspective that, in my view, is kind of the key link in the chain of his life that actually might be missing, and the source of much of this confusion as it relates to Dr. Peterson and Christianity. We're going to get to that in a second, but let this play out because this is also wild right here.
In this decision that you just made, that's actually worth attending to, in my estimation, more than a casual declaration. And so I'm not that interested in casual declarations, and people declare their Christianity all the time, and part of me thinks not everyone who says, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, right? So be careful what you claim. It's a high bar.
I agree. And I can tell this is very sensitive to you because I feel like you know what it is, that Jubilee thing isn't your first rodeo. It's not the first time you've been around wolves that are trying to manipulate you. And I understand that it is a touchy subject, but you're such a good reflection of Christians. And you're such a good outspoken man that's actually doing something not only for our country, but for the country that you came from. And so I just find that weak men or weak women will look at that as a way of you saying, no, I don't want to be a part of that. When they're watching you be so wise and you're just waving the flag of confidently, even if they're trying to approach you in a negative way, like, no, I am a man of God. Jesus is my God. Then does the Bible verse scare you when they say that they'll deny me in public? I'll deny you in front of my Father. Because you're denying them because they're trying to set you in a trap. But would you not have confidence?
I'm denying the questioner ownership over my tongue. I don't like having people put words in my mouth.
So what do you classify yourself as? Like if Jesus came down right now, would you be his son? Or would you be somebody who's studying Jesus? Like where does your heart lie right now? Who is your God? And I'm not trying to trap you or to be disrespectful. I just want to know where your heart lies, because the wisdom that you're pouring out into people is something that, dude, we promote it on our show. And we learn from it and we grow from it. So I just want to know who, because I see you as my mentor.
What do you think? You're watching?
I see you as, my perspective is that you are a God-fearing man. You're learning and you're taking what God gave you, you're teaching others. From your fruits, if I tasted them, I say this is a righteous man that's after God's heart, like David. But then your mouth will say, who says that I'm a Christian? So it does confuse me as somebody who does watch you.
Really well said.
That's a good answer.
Dude, I love this stuff. I literally couldn't help but laugh because anybody who watches Jordan Peterson know how hard it is to get that man to do what he's doing. That right there is called silence. Jordan Peterson, I'm like, dude, this guy, like, he's a cannon. Like, he always has to come back for everything. So just to watch him, like, I can so appreciate this from him because, I mean, this dude's spitfire. Like, Jordan Peterson's good. But I mean, like, he said that's a good answer. And he just ponders it. And I just love it. Like, I love when the Holy Spirit works in a space like that. Yo, that's crazy that he's that quiet for that long.
I don't know how to add to that.
Oh, man.
To what you already said.
I love it.
I'm trying to find my way. And I'm communicating with people about that voyage as clearly as I possibly can.
You're just being honest. You're back to when you were writing everything and it's just the truth. As of right now, Dr. Jordan Peterson is a man after God's heart, and you're finding it. Is this the best way that they could describe you?
That's good.
I like that, and also I see that. I think
I'd rather let other people decide.
Yeah,
I'd rather let other people. I'm public, painfully public, and so
I like that.
People
Painfully
can
public.
draw their own conclusions. And if they want a casual conclusion, I'm not interested in providing that. And so I don't want to tie everything up in a bow and deliver it as if it's something simple.
Right.
It's not simple. And so it's not like I'm trying to be opaque. You know, when you ask me
I think so. Like for some context here, right? Because this is like, so for some context here, right? Because I actually don't feel like Jordan Peterson is stuck, or he can't answer the question, or he's lost. I would side with George Janko on this. I would say, yeah, a man who's after God's heart. I would say he's curious. He's definitely curious. Are you kidding me right now? Hold on, guys. Bro, and he's on a motorcycle doing that? Come on, man. That's crazy right there. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I don't feel like he's stuck or he's lost or, you know, he doesn't know where he's going. I said I would side with George Janko on that. I do feel like he's a man that's after God's own heart, or a man that is interested in the Lord. Like, he has a desire, which is great, right? If you've ever heard, I think John MacArthur did this masterfully, but if you ever heard him explain to someone, how do I know I'm saved, right? He talks about one great indicator are your desires, right? So I would side with George Janko and say, yeah, I see that when I see George Peterson. But for some context, I think George Peterson is doing something that's very smart here. And it's something that Jesus actually did speak about in Scripture. So we're going to go to the book of Luke real quick. And this is just a summary. I know this. I know what's happening here, but I just want to go to a summary so we can get back to the video. But I want to give some context here, because I don't think that long period of silence from Jordan Peterson is him being stuck or lost or not knowing, or maybe he's an atheist or agnostic. I don't think it's any of that. But look at what this says in Luke chapter 14, verse 28. Jesus famously said, "For which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to finish it?" So it's funny because it says this parable emphasizes the importance of careful consideration and planning before undertaking a significant endeavor, especially the commitment of following Jesus as a disciple. So I think that this is great. And this is the first thing that I felt like the Holy Spirit brought to my heart watching this, because I don't think that he's lost in this. I've listened to Jordan Peterson talk about God, talk about the things that he believes the Lord is bringing to him. He's an extremely brilliant, articulate man. And I've talked about him on the channel before. I said if you don't watch him, you really can get lost. And it can kind of seem like word salad. But I'm telling you, like, because I watch him faithfully, like, I know, like, his talk, I can follow his vernacular, his verbiage makes sense to me. I don't think that he's lost. I think that he's still at a point in his walk where he is doing something to the effect of counting the cost, which is extremely biblical to do, right? This is why Jesus is saying, which one of you will consider building a tower without counting the cost? He goes deeper into it in Scripture. He talks about what you may need to build it, like the things you may need to gather to build it, the cost you may need. He's saying that a wise man would take all of this stuff into consideration. And yes, because there's a cross to bear, right? Following Jesus is not an easy thing to do. So I think that Jordan Peterson is in a sweet spot. I think he's in a very good spot. And that was one of the first things the Holy Spirit laid on my heart, just listening to him talk.
that question, I'm looking for the words. That's why I asked you what you thought. If I could find the words that would be sufficiently solid, then I would use them.
Have you ever asked God to help you with that?
Yes, I would say I've asked that.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. You know, part of seeking for the right words is that's an attitude of continual prayer. Is this the right word? You gotta feel that out. You're pretty good at that, by the way. You're pretty careful in your choice of words.
Thank you.
Mm.
Appreciate that.
Mm.
Okay, so I'm gonna now go to her choice of words that he's referring to there.
The idea that you have to sacrifice your intellect to be a Christian is absurd. It's absurd.
Yeah, it is.
So
that's not even true.
And there are ways of understanding Christianity, we've talked about some of them today, that are they're more profound. It's a more profound worldview than anything else I've encountered by an immense amount. There's no comparison. I mean, there's been lots of atheists who've watched the different series I've done on the Gospels or on Genesis, on Exodus, who've begun to understand that there's far more to the biblical corpus than they had realized, that the version they've been presented with of Christian thinking is a shallow, Marxist-derived, post-Enlightenment parody that bears no relationship whatsoever to the profundity of the stories or the doctrine.
That's it.
You were saying that your deepening of your faith has changed you.
Yeah.
How?
Okay, this is awesome.
I think it's changed everything. I think that I truly understand now what Jesus explained to us about having a veil over our eyes. And that reflection of, in the Old Testament, because the people didn't have the Spirit inside of them, they felt like they had to go to the church, right? They had to go to God in order to have the wisdom with them, or they felt like they had to follow these certain rules, right? So they viewed their relationship with God as if it was just a set of rules. And that caused them to have a lack of, closeness with God. And then when Jesus came and he was able to resolve that, we were able to get the Holy Spirit inside of us, then our veil was able to be lifted. And because of the Holy Spirit and the wisdom that he's given to us, now we're able to see things differently, understand things differently, the same way that the Word of God has been able to give us this information, right? And so now I understand that in my own life. I can truly see that my old self was me in the Old Testament, right? I didn't have a relationship with God. I was far away from him. I did not have the Spirit inside of me. So I had this veil and I saw things very differently. And now that I have a relationship with him, he's taken the veil off of my eyes, and things that I thought maybe were okay before, I genuinely do not see the same way. The way that, my values lie, I feel so much more confident in where I stand, because I know that at the end of the day, I rely on the Word of God and not what I think might be true, although I follow that all the time because I think we all do. But now I have something to fall back on. I know that if I feel a certain way, I gotta reposition myself. Okay, am I leading myself astray, or should I just redirection myself to what God wants me to do in here? So let me just redirect myself to his word,
right.
And so that's how long have you been doing that?
Probably the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest change as far as you're concerned for you?
My biggest change?
Yeah. What's changed for you most dramatically?
That's an interesting question.
What's better about you?
Peace.
Yeah.
It's just my peace.
You're pretty good at listening.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's a hell of a skill.
It's a great partner to
Thank
have.
you. I think
She's
that,
built me up to be a great man.
oh, thank you. But I don't know, I think listening has been, I grew up, my mom was my coach, was my figure skating coach. And so I trained really hard.
Okay, so I just want to pause quickly at this moment to...
She readjusts. She says now when I feel something, I have something to fall back on. I think that she articulated that well for people who maybe don't have a very good context or understanding of God, right? She says, I have something to fall back on. A better way to say that is taking a step back and asking yourself, does this align with God's word? What I'm thinking, what I'm about to do, how I feel, how does this align with scripture? She's making a great point. So I can understand why he's saying her words actually were great for that. I want to actually stop that here. You guys can actually head over to Daily Dose of Wisdom and finish the video on his channel. Shout out to him. He's about 7K away from 1 million subscribers. Definitely earned. Or you can go to George Jinko's channel and watch the rest of it. But I actually am going to probably save that till I go live later on tonight because I like to use a Christian clip. And I want to use something of the sorts like that to finish reacting to it. Because I think that later on in the night when the next couple people jump on, they'll be able to appreciate that. And I'll probably watch the whole thing with less clips. So if you guys that are on now, you can come back to the second live stream later on and probably watch that whole video if you don't get a chance to head over to their channel. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I wanted you guys to see that because with Jordan Peterson just having the brilliant mind that he does, I think it's just awesome for us to sit down and just listen to someone like him be so real at saying like, yeah, I'm just at a place where I'm still figuring it out. Like as smart as I am, as many books as I've written, and as great as I am at articulating myself, Christianity is literally one of the most immense worldviews I've ever encountered. I think that that is just a great thing to hear from Jordan Peterson because, again, he's a brilliant man, right? So for him to just be so honest about that, and again, like I said, I don't feel like he's agnostic. I don't feel like he's an atheist. I don't feel like he's stuck. He doesn't understand what to say. None of the sort. I just feel like he's doing a very wise and also biblical thing, and I feel like he's at a place where he's not only learning, but he's counting the cost. He said it's a difficult thing, and I think that he articulated that masterfully. So I will talk to you guys later on. Until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves, love one another, and be peaceful. Peace.